there's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza, there's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza, a hole. Well, fix it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Well, fix it, dear Henry, fix it. With what shall I fix it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I fix it, dear Liza? With what? With straw, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With straw, dear Henry, with straw. But the straw is too long, dear Liza, but the straw is too long, dear Liza, too long. Then cut it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then cut it, dear Henry, cut it. With what shall I cut it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I cut it, dear Liza? With what? With a knife, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With a knife, dear Henry, a knife. But the knife is too dull, dear Liza, dear Liza. But the knife is too dull, dear Liza, too dull. Then sharpen it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then sharpen it, dear Henry, sharpen it. With what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza? With what? With a stone, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With a stone, dear Henry, a stone. But the stone is too dry, dear Liza, dear Liza. But the stone is too dry, dear Liza, too dry. Then wet it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then wet it, dear Henry, wet it. With what shall I wet it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I wet it, dear Liza? With what? With water, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With water, dear Henry, water. But the water's too far, dear Liza, dear Liza. But the water's too far, dear Liza, too far. Then carry it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then carry it, dear Henry, carry it. With what shall I carry it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I carry it, dear Liza? With what? With a bucket, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With a bucket, dear Henry, bucket. But there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, a hole. Well,